Hello, everyone, and welcome to Making It on Mondays. Now, Making It on Mondays is brought to you by the Acupuncture Pregnancy Clinic, which is an integrative traditional Chinese medicine clinic and an acupuncture clinic dedicated to reproductive health, to IVF support, and to pregnancy care. Now, these weekly sessions are designed to help and support those on their fertility journey and are all about empowering women and men who are trying to conceive through providing weekly workshops with relevant and research-based resources. In these weekly sessions, we cover topics such as TCM fertility, nutrition, the latest research and mindset, as well as tips from the experts, both inside and outside of our clinic. Today, I am your host, and for those of you who don't know me, my name is Louise Jeffrey. I'm a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, an acupuncturist, and a coach, and I've been in practice helping couples trying to conceive since 2010. So today, we're going to talk about the festive season. Now, the festive season is not always an easy time for those who are trying to conceive, because whilst this time of year is meant to be fun and festive and about family and connection, it can also be a reminder that another year has gone by and that we still haven't fallen pregnant. For example, you might be surrounded by friends or by relatives that already have a family, or they've fallen pregnant throughout the year. And so if we haven't been able to fall pregnant this year, what is meant to be a happy, fun, and festive time can sometimes leave us feeling a little sad and apprehensive about the festive season. So let's break this festive season and fertility down into a few key topics. The first is dealing with the stress of another year having gone by without us achieving what we ultimately want, which is obviously to start or continue our family. Now, because time is such a factor when we're trying to conceive, we're often left feeling with a sense of urgency, and this urgency can leave us feeling a little bit panicked that time is really running out. You know, a lot of our patients will say they feel like the time stress is constantly hanging over their heads. And what we always tell our patients is that there are two things we need to consider when dealing with difficult emotions that we feel when we're not able to conceive as easily as we would like. The first is we want to acknowledge our feelings. Now, for most of us, it's a natural human reaction to try and push the feelings away because they feel so uncomfortable. I mean, who wants to feel sadness or frustration or grief, right? No one does. But what we have to learn to do here, and this can be applied to all situations we experience in our lives, is to acknowledge our feelings, but not to let them define us. And what do I mean by that? Well, that we have to allow ourselves to feel what we are feeling by sitting in the emotions for a short while and giving ourselves compassion for those feelings. And then when they don't feel so big anymore, because giving them space will allow them to be processed and to leave, we can actually move on. So once we've acknowledged our feelings and allowed them to pass, and when we are ready to, we can then start focusing on what we are going to be doing moving forward. So that might be looking at next year, for example, and deciding what we might want to do differently to see if that makes a difference to the outcome. So perhaps it would be adding in a new modality like acupuncture, or cutting out caffeine and toxicity, or maybe it's changing our diet, or perhaps it's asking our fertility specialists about how they might change our IVF protocol. And what happens when we do this and we start focusing on a plan while still acknowledging our feelings? It helps our mind to find the emotional balance that it needs to be present for what is, but at the same time feel empowered in taking control of what we can influence in our lives. And this is really important so that we don't feel like we're stuck in limbo or in no man's land. So as we come up to the festive season, acknowledging what it is that we're feeling, and then having a think about next year too, can be really helpful, as I say, in calming the mind and stabilizing us emotionally. And then once we've done this, we can set the intention to take a break for a few weeks over the festive season. It's really, really important. When we've been working so hard at trying to conceive throughout the year, many of us don't get an emotional break when we're trying to conceive, or even a physical one if we're trying to conceive with IVF. So taking a break over this time can really help replenish us in body and in mind and in spirit. All right. So once you've set yourself up emotionally for Christmas, another thing I get asked a lot in clinic is, how do I deal with friends or family around me? Friends or family who already have a family of their own, or who've fallen pregnant, because it can be so triggering of my sadness or my grief. So the truth is, we aren't going to be able to get away from having people or situations around us who are triggering, right? Not just in the fertility space, but throughout our lives. But the best way to handle this, and I'm talking in particular about, big family or friends get-togethers, the best way to handle this is to think ahead. What am I going to do if I notice myself feeling some very strong unwanted emotions when I'm in that sort of situation? Now, we all know the best way to deal with our own emotions, but a trick that I personally use if I notice that I'm feeling really emotional is to excuse myself from a situation and go and sit quietly in a space somewhere for a few minutes. And what I do is I sit and I put my hand on my heart and I allow myself just to feel for a couple of minutes and to feel compassion for myself. And I honor those feelings just for a few minutes. And then I take a deep breath and I walk back out. Now, unfortunately, you may have to deal with people who are a little bit sensitive or a little bit pushy. And if someone makes a hurtful comment, it's really important to prepare for this too. Now, people usually don't know how hurtful it is if they suggest, I don't know, an amazing fertility diet, or that you simply need to just relax. Remember that most of the time they're just trying to help. And it's really important in this sort of situation to politely and firmly just reinforce your boundaries. And remember that you never have to discuss anything you're not comfortable discussing, and you're well within your rights to make this known. Now, you also might want to think of how you might answer if someone asks you an awkward question. So maybe at home, you can rehearse a few lines that you might say if someone inquires about a sensitive topic. And if you've got a partner, you can discuss and then you can agree with them what's the main message that we're going to be sharing if somebody makes inquiries about our fertility journey, and how we're potentially going to deal with it. All right. And the basic rule around this is to be polite and to be friendly, but somewhat vague. Take control of the conversation, be warm, but change the subject if you want to, right? And preparing ourselves in this way, like we would do when we're feeling nervous about a presentation, for example, what it does is it reduces our fear and our apprehension, and it allows us to remain calmer and more grounded so that we don't get upset and get emotional. Another thing that I also find helpful is to enlist the help of one or two supportive people around you if you can, people you trust, and let them know upfront that you're feeling a little bit apprehensive about the situation and why, and just ask them to keep an eye out for you. Just knowing that you're not totally alone and that you have support can go a long way in keeping those emotions stable. Now, if you've chosen not to drink alcohol or to eat certain things over the festive season, if you've got a specific clean eating diet, for example, that you're trying to stick to, then really give some thought into how you're going to handle this over the festive season. Because alcohol and indulgent food, as you know, is very often included in festivities. And it's really important for us to plan ahead and set ourselves some goals and create some structure around eating and drinking so that we're not overextending ourselves or putting ourselves into overly stressful situations. So, you might decide to relax a little and have one glass of champagne here and there, or enjoy some festive treats on a special occasion, rather than go completely crazy. Be clear up front what you've decided, make it very clear in your own head. And if you do this, you're far more likely to stick with that and then not feel remorseful afterwards. Now, another thing I often speak to my patients about is our thoughts and our negative thinking. And one of the things that I'm going to suggest that we focus on during the festive season is to challenge our negative thinking patterns. Now, if your thoughts manifest in a negative form, if you've got an inner voice that's often, saying really negative things to you, it might be time for you to learn to challenge this negative thinking. And it's really important to start watching your inner monologue and to be careful of that kind of one-dimensional black or white thinking. The thing to remember here is that the more you tell yourself something, the more you're going to think it's true. So it really pays to be watchful of what you're thinking. And I'll give you an example. Is it really true that you can never enjoy Christmas because you don't have children? And you'll be surprised to hear how many of us actually have those thoughts going through our minds. It's really hard for me to enjoy Christmas because I don't have a family of my own and I don't have children to enjoy it with. Yes, it is sad that another year has gone by without a family of your own at Christmas time. But what we want to do is we want to acknowledge those feelings, as I've said before, but also know that there are some very special moments throughout the festive season that we can actually be grateful for if we live in the present moment. So challenging the negative thoughts and changing them to be more present and more grateful throughout the festive season can really change our experience of this period and time in our lives. Now, when we're trying to conceive, we're often stuck in the future. And so bringing ourselves back to the present moment and back to gratitude can be hard. And it's an art and it's a skill for sure to be present. But it's amazing when you try it out and you get it right. You'll be amazed at how much better you feel when you do just that, when you start to be more present and to focus on the gratitude. So to recap what we have discussed today, here are our top tips on handling the festive season when we're trying to conceive. Number one, to acknowledge our feelings so that they can pass, but not let them define us. Second, number two, once we've acknowledged our feelings and allowed them to pass, and when we're ready to, start focusing on what we're going to be doing next year and what we're going to be doing moving forward. This can be really helpful in calming the mind and in stabilizing us emotionally. Number three, give ourselves permission and set the intention to take a break for a few weeks over the festive season, even if it's just an emotional and mental break, and just relax more into the present moment of this period of time. Number four, think of how you might answer if someone asks an awkward question over the festive season. Rehearse a few lines at home so that you know exactly what it is that you're going to say if someone inquires about a sensitive topic, and be clear and have boundaries on what it is that you will and won't discuss. Number five, enlist the help of one or two supportive people around you. If there are people that you trust and you feel comfortable in talking to, let them know upfront that you're feeling a little bit apprehensive and why, and ask them to keep an eye out for you. Number six, set clear boundaries for yourself ahead of time and be very, very clear on what you are going to allow yourself to eat and drink over the festive season and what you are not, so that you're not left feeling remorseful for overindulging. And last but not least, challenge your negative thinking patterns and try and replace them with more positive ones. For example, I have a lot to be grateful for this festive season. So that's it for now. I hope that this session has been helpful for you. I'd love to know if you've got any comments or anything you'd like to share or anything that's resonated with you. Let us know in the comments box. I am wishing you all a happy and fun and peaceful festive season for 2022. Now, for more detailed and resourceful info, make sure you visit our Facebook group or our Instagram, or sign up to our mailing list at acupuncturepregnancy.com.au. Signing off now. Have a beautiful rest of your day.